Hello, everybody. It's your host, AnarchistRevolution. My name is Matt Hunter. And today I'm just going to do a podcast, rambling on about my thoughts. I don't know how long it may go. It may go 30 minutes. It may go an hour. We'll see. I may take some breaks. I might cut the video up into multiple. But I just want to, just do an audio and just air out what I've been thinking in my mind. What's wrong with the world? Why is it where it's at? And why do I notice such a disconnect with human beings nowadays? And you really can see the difference ever since the birth of the smartphones and stuff like that. And being 22 years old, I'm in the unique age bracket where I kind of got to see the birth of the smartphone. And I remember back in the days where when I had my first cell phone, it was just, no, there was no such thing as flip. Well, there was flip there for a while and stuff, but just a big phone, and you could basically text on it. You could never go on the internet. You could never picture, video, all that kind of stuff. And that was pretty cool, but I remember back in those days, the kids played outside a lot more. And definitely when you went out to parks or you went on sit on a bus or anything like that, you definitely noticed that people were communicating more. And you can't help but notice the disconnect with human beings today, that you go on a busy bus or a train and you see maybe one person looking around and everyone else on their smartphones. It's just crazy to see how shut off people are. And to see that there just isn't as much connectiveness, I feel. Customer service, I feel, when I go into stores is down. People in genuine seem to look a little more less happy and more depressed. Prescription pills for antidepressants and stuff like that is through the roof. I don't have the statistics right here handy, but I think like 1/3 or maybe even more of Americans are on pills and stuff. And I look around and I go, why? So that started me down the rabbit hole. So just looking around, seeing things like that, seeing things in the world getting a little messed up. And I guess it could play an effect too that I'm originally from New Brunswick, so very small town I grew up in. High school actually only had maybe 200-300 in the entire school. So up here in the cities and stuff, that could be one class. So I guess I came from a town and a time period where I seen people a lot more socialized. And now since I've moved up here to the city and stuff, you can really see that the bigger the places, the more people I find, the more disconnected people are, which is strange. You would think in a place where more people are, there'd be more socializing, but it's actually the opposite. And it's because nobody stops to get to know each other. It's just such a fast-paced movement here. Everyone's running to work, passing each other in the streets and the sidewalks and the GO trains and stuff like that. And so as I was saying, just wondering why I see this decay in society. And that started me on this path of just looking for answers. So I started, we have the internet. And I started Googling some of these things and it started me into politics and conspiracy theories and all that kind of loopy stuff. And I had to weed through all of the crap out there and the misinformation until finally I come to some clear answers to a lot of my questions. It's been a long process. I started wondering why the world's messed up and looking into these kind of questions. I'd say it really started around 15, 16 years old. I started listening to Alex Jones, and back then, to say you listen to Alex Jones, everyone would be like, wow, we listen to that crazy conspiracy theorist guy. And Alex Jones, say what you want about him, but looking now 10 years down the road, a lot of what he said, not all of it, but a lot of what he said has come true. So I guess when I started listening to him around 15, 16, that started me into the politics, the conspiracy theories, and stuff like that. 9/11, all that kind of stuff. And I found a lot of answers about that and cracked a lot of conspiracy theories and found out a lot of them, were just bullshit. But I kept an open mind going into all of them. And through that process, it led me to a beautiful thing called philosophy. And philosophy is beautiful because it's kind of what I was looking for. The study of how everything works, and the study how people work and stuff like that, and getting to moral truths and stuff. And also studying history. I love history as well. Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and all these great philosophers and stuff like that. Very interesting stuff. And through studying history, finding out that King Alexander, which I'm very interested in, who was, great commander of his times. If you're anything interested in history, you guarantee you know stories like Achilles and Alexander and stuff like that. So finding out these great people, and he had Aristotle and stuff like that, a philosopher, to coach him through his childhood. So turned me on to philosophers, and philosophers then showed me. I made my way into a radio talk show host for Freedom Main Radio named Stefan Molyneux. Anyone listening to this, I would encourage them to go check this guy out. Beautiful philosopher, great videos, great information. So looking for the problems in the world, and I came to a lot of answers, and the puzzle started to come together now. And a lot of people don't want to believe that there are a few men, or not even a few, but let's say, people pulling the strings of the world and how things work. And when you say things like that, the New World Order, the Illuminati groups, oh no, people think it's crazy. But thank God that there was this release this year that come out detailing that 85 men control half of the world's wealth. That's an actual fact. You can go Google it. Public knowledge now. So if you just, on that grounds alone, realize that we're living in a world, 2014, where 85 men control half of the world's wealth. Now that's 85 men. Now once you start adding more millionaires and billionaires onto that, you get to the statistic that the poor, basically everyone like us that isn't a millionaire, we only make up maybe 1% or so of the entire world's wealth. So a lot of greed and a lot of hoarding. Now, just knowing this, that there's all these massive billionaires and these people that are literally controlling all the wealth and resources in the entire world, and knowing that you could end world hunger with just simply $30 billion, I got to the realization, it became very obvious to me that, well, what do these people want? They have all the money in the world. They got that money through the platform of government because it offers a way for corrupt and evil people to pay off these Senate leaders and your government officials so they can get insider deals to make themselves and their companies more rich. So I was like, okay, they got the power, they got the money now. Why don't they just retire? What's wrong with them? If I was these guys, I would just retire right now, disappear. Like Bush, you hard to hear about the guy anymore. War crime, ex-president. I would just disappear like that and take my money and run. But they're still here, and we still see the agenda being pushed through, and the corruption and rampantness. So I started thinking, okay, well, they got the money, they got the wealth and everything, so it must be a power thing with them. That's the only thing. And if you start studying psychology and philosophy and stuff like that, and how the human brain works, you realize that power is a very addictive thing. That it's more addicting, studies have proven, than even cocaine. The rush of having a power role like that. And when you come to the realization that each night these 85 men can lay their heads in their beds, knowing that they have the amount of money they could easily feed the world over and over again, ending world hunger, and still have money to spare and be rich. You got to understand, these people are evil, evil men. So they have all the money, they have all the power. What's left? The planet. Think about it. Put yourself in their minds for 1 minute. Now I know it's going to be hard to put yourself in a crazy psychopathic person's mind, but just dab in it for a minute. You have all the money, you have all the power, and you're slowly now moving into an era where we can basically have robots to replace human labor. If you're a crazy, psychopathic, evil person like that could end world hunger with your wealth many times over, does it seem that far-fetched conspiracy theory to think that these men may want the world for themselves and their future progeny? That they may possibly think, screw all these rest of these people. We can get rid of them. And we can live on. We can enjoy this beautiful planet to ourselves. That's not too far-fetched to think of. So explaining it to you like this, hopefully you understand when people say really quick, like, these men are controlling the world, New World Order. They're not that far off. When you come to the realization that 6 men control all the media that's out there, that everything's been monopolized. I mean, here in Canada, we only have Rogers and Bell for internet and stuff like that. Those are 2 men controlling all of our internet here. Okay, things have been monopolized. So explaining it to you like that should make it easier for you guys to understand that it is possible that these super rich elite people really wanted the world for themselves. Now, how would you do that? So let's think. You're a couple thousand men or so, let's say even more, families, extended families, and you have 7 billion people on your planet. Well, you can't. You're way outnumbered. What are you going to do? You want the planet for yourself. What are you going to do? Well, if I had all the money and resources in the world, and I'm that rich and that powerful, you're going to have to do it stealthy. It's the only way to get this done. So you could do things like poison the food supplies. You're rich. You don't have to eat out of the same pool of food supplies that the poor do. So throw some chemicals in that. Boom. Cancer rates skyrocketing. Poison their water. Put some fluoride in there or something. Dumb them down. Studies have proven that fluoride, Harvard study, lowers IQ. People are like, the people with common arguments, it's for your teeth, it'll help your teeth. Listen, since when has the government ever wanted to do something good for us? And why the hell do they want to put fluoride in the water? Why don't you just brush your teeth with toothpaste more? Are they really concerned about your teeth that bad? Come on, people, really? After all I just told you guys about the corruption going on in the world, and you think the government wants to look out for your teeth? So these men, they have to do it stealthy. So another ways they can do it is propaganda. Very powerful tool. The TV, very powerful. Think of how many people watch TV. We all watch it. And how many shows and the music and stuff like that. So if I were these rich people, what a better way than to get into the TV, get into your music, and get into stuff like that, and push these kinds of ideas, push tyranny and stuff like that, psych warfare. Why you see Miley Cyrus and all these rappers and all that stuff always twerking and doing these things to try and outdo themselves. Now, listen, I got nothing against, sex sells. We all know that. They promote it. But it's a lot more in your face now. Rap music used to be political. I mean, if you go back into the Tupac, Shakur, and Biggie Smalls, and the birth of rap music and stuff like that, hip hop, it was very political. And now it's all just a bunch of, I still listen to some stuff, so I'm guilty of that. But it's all about just who can get most drunk and have the best gold chains and fat flashy cars, and promoting materialism, not important things in life. Like political talk and powerful good songs that sing about good things in life instead of materialistic objects, and pushing people and fans to buy the next Nikes or Kanye West's shoes. Like, come on, really? So these smart people, these rich people, they've been doing this agenda very stealthy without your knowledge. because they're up against a lot of people, and the people don't realize that we do outnumber them by a lot, and they don't want us to know that. Now, let me break it down really what's wrong with the system today. And what's wrong with the system today is it's based off violence. How does government exist? Through taxes. How does government get taxes? Violently. You have no say in the matter if you can pay them or not. If you don't pay your taxes, if you try and work a cash job under the table, you can get busted for that stuff. You know, tax evasion, stuff like that. And they'll throw you in a cage. And if you resist that policeman after, they send out their paperwork and stuff to your door saying, hey, pay this money or else, like the mafia does, their threats. And then they get a knock at the door with the police guy, and, if you resist that police guy, he's can escalate enough force, and if you fight him, don't want to go, he can kill you. Okay, so that's the system we live in. It's based off violence. It's not based off voluntarism. So that's why, after this, starting at 15, 16 years old, and now 22, studying, trying to figure out the answers to all these questions. Now, I know a lot of you listeners out there don't have the time. You've got busy lives out there, maybe don't have the time to put as much time as I have into researching these things. So take my knowledge as just that I've studied this stuff more. That's all it is. So if some of the things may seem shocking to you at first, just let it sink in, research what I'm saying. Don't believe anything I'm saying. Go research it to make sure it's true. But just realize it's not an ego thing. I'm not saying, but if a doctor goes to school and studies to be a doctor, he's going to know how to be a doctor better than the guy on the street. Well, I study this stuff. I study politics. I study all this what I'm talking to you about here. And I've come to these conclusions. So take these conclusions and make with them what you want. But so the system, why it can't work is because it's based off this violence. Now, if we had a system that was based off voluntarism, you volunteered to pay your taxes, just something as small as that, it's not small, it's violent, it's very bad. But taking that change, and I know people were like, well, how this, or what do we can do? It's not that hard to think of a voluntary tax system, because people are responsible enough to pay their cell phone bills every month on time, or their mortgage and stuff. So what do you think? People are not responsible enough to pay for a government or a voluntary government that could fund the roads and Medicare and all the things that government provides that they want? And then you say, well, what about the people who wouldn't want to pay in? Well, that's the difference between being free and tyranny. The option to pay into something. Because if you don't have the option to pay for something, that's theft, is it not? And I find it so crazy that we live in a world where even as young as 2, 3 years old, the very first moral rules you're taught as a kid: don't hit, don't steal, don't kill. But yet we allow every single one of these things to continue to happen as adults. Steal through taxation, killing through wars. And I think that's why the world's so messed up, and why a lot of kids growing up are messed up, because we're don't do this, don't do that.
But yet our peers and adults and authority figures are doing the opposite. So I think what we need to do is take the violence out of society's problems, because we all know violence is never the right way to solve social complex problems. Have a voluntary tax, and things would work out. Let's give my magical utopian world, like some you would call, a play-by-play here. Let's imagine how this could go out, though. So you got a politician. He's running for office in Matt Hunter's voluntary utopian society. That politician promises, he's going to do this, he's going to do that for the community, blah, 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 blah. Ex-politician promises other things. You vote in the other one. Yay. So now he's your politician, and he doesn't do any of the things he said he was going to do when he was getting elected. Well, in a voluntary society based off what I just explained to you, everyone would immediately stop paying the bill to ex-government members because they're not doing their job. That would eliminate the problems. Someone would have to then step in and do that job, or they wouldn't get paid. And it wouldn't be in the best interest for the politician to not do what the people wanted because he wouldn't get paid. So you want to solve the government, you got to solve the major problem, which is the gun in the room, the violence tax. There's no accountability. A politician is the only person who can promise you a bunch of things but then get in office and do none of them. I think I used this in another video. Can you imagine going into Best Buy, going back there looking at the iPads? The iPad salesman tell you, hey, you like this iPad? I'll sell you for $200. You say, wow, an iPad for $200. How could I pass up that deal? You get to the counter. The clerk tells you that'll be $800 for the iPad. You say, whoa. The sales guy told me $200. Well, too bad. We're reneging on our deal. You would immediately put the iPad back and not close the deal. You'd have that option. With government, you do not. That's why Obama or our Prime Minister Stephen Harper, they get in office, they can do whatever they want, but they can't be kicked out for however many years of their semester. That's so absurd. That's ridiculous. And people say, oh, well, you can impeach them. Do you know how hard it is to impeach a president? Well, first off, you have to get the Congress and all the other millionaires and all that to agree to go against their own profitable interests and get out their buddy, basically. And the only other way in our current state of government, like I don't understand it. Like, what's so hard to understand about this stuff? You got to get the violence out of it. Now, when I start explaining to people these things, you know, they can sound shocking. Because it means, if you listen to what I'm saying, you have to change up your entire lifestyle. When you realize that the non-aggression principle and violence is not a good way to solve problems, you can't renege on that. You know, these moral codes are universal. You can't be a good person, abide by moral premise one day and then not. So that would mean a lot of things would have to change. This would include parents and spanking. This is a very touchy subject with some people. And if violence is not a good way to take taxes and to form a community and a society, it shouldn't be the right way to raise kids either. So, and I want to get into the spanking as well, because 80 to 90% of Americans and Canadians as well are still spanking their toddlers and their kids out there. And why I think it's important to get into this is because I think it ties into government and it ties into society in a whole. Because these psychopaths, these 85 elite bankers, or not bankers, but 85 men and all these rich people or whatever, they're controlling this stuff and pushing the wars. Well, they're psychopaths. Obviously, they lack empathy towards other human beings. So then I asked the question, my mind, I got to ask, well, how did they get like that? Can you be born evil? No, you can't. You can't be born evil. Unless you've been in some kind of accident and a piece of your brain got hit and, I don't know, something like that. Maybe that's possible. But as we know so far, science says, there's nothing that makes you just born evil. Okay, babies are very nice and pure, innocent people. So that got me to the realization that it must be environmental. So that's why I want to talk about the topic of spanking. And let's just examine for a minute what exactly spanking is. You're mad at your kid, let's say. He didn't clean his room or something. You get frustrated with them. And you spank them or whatever. Now, wouldn't it make much better sense to just try and talk to your kids? But no, see, that's the problem with a lot of parents today. They don't talk to their kids. They don't have the time, or, busy working all day. Didn't know what they were getting into when they had children. Maybe had them too young. Didn't realize the facts. Didn't pick up a parenting book. Well, when you raise people the wrong way, you create a bunch of assholes in the world. Assholes in the world is why the world's in a bad place right now. So not only do we need to work on fixing the government through getting out the violence and the gun in the room and moving back to a voluntary tax system where people can pay into it and feel like they're getting their money's worth, but we need to take it a step further to ensure future generations don't ever have this problem again by raising future generations in a peaceful manner. Talk to your children. They're toddlers. They don't understand. I know one parent I heard use an example in a video that why he spanked his kid is his kid was walking towards the road, and he wouldn't stop walking towards the road, and he kept telling him, don't walk toward the road. So what did he do? The third or fourth time, he pulled his kid over, and he spanked him. He smacked him for it. Now, is that a right way to do it? Is that the correct way to parent? It's an easy fix. Sure. Now you've installed fear into the child. He knows that every time he goes out to the road, he might get his dad, who's supposed to love him, brought him into this world, that'll pull his pants down or not pull his pants down, but over basically 10 times his weight, overpower him, and spank him. And all you adults out there that were spanked, remember the emotions you went through as a child. Well, your adult person spanked you. Don't feel good. That's why a lot of kids cry when they get spanked, okay? Now, what that father should have done is pull his kid aside, sit him down, and have a real good in-depth conversation explaining why you can't go by the road. Now, sure, it may seem like a lot more work than the quick spank right away and then get the immediate behavior modification effect, but the benefits in taking the time out to explaining it to someone who is young and doesn't quite understand a road or a car yet is you didn't install that fear and aggression into that little toddler. That when he grows up, he'll grow up in a world, in a household where he never knew a dad or a mother that would hit him. So that when he ever gets a tyrannical government or a corrupt police officer or someone treat him the way that people do today in this world, he wouldn't be so desensitized to it. That he would stand up and say, whoa, 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 I've never been treated like this in my life, and I will not tolerate it today. But why society is allowed and why it's got so corrupt and docile and decadent and it looks the way it does is because we have a lot of just messed up kids out there. And when I say kids, I use that loosely. It's adults too. A lot of adults out there just are dealing with issues from trauma from their childhoods as well that haven't grown up or realized it yet. So if we can get rid of this idea in our minds that spanking is acceptable way of parenting, that if we could just raise a generation and get this information out, that I mean, if you just Google the effects of spanking, and if people actually knew that when they hit their kids and stuff like that, they're installing aggression, they're lowering IQ, they're setting them up for diseases and stuff like that. I bet you a lot of people didn't know that. But trauma and stuff like that turns on different genes in the body, which can lead to things and diseases down the road. Okay, it's a bigger issue. It's not just a quick spank and simple thing as what you think it is in that moment. It leads to really serious effects down the road. So I think it's because 80 to 90% of people are spanking their kids and teaching them violence at young is why they're so susceptible to violence as adults and why the government and stuff like that exists. Because if we raised a generation of peaceful kids and then this guy in an IRS costume came and told them, hey, we're going to take 60% of your paycheck out of your money here for taxes, they'd be like, well, that's theft. What do you mean? What are you talking about? You can't just take my stuff. Kids would be a lot clearer to these moral codes. But we raise them now in a society where you say, I've actually seen this before. I've actually been in a grocery store and seen a mother. Her toddler was getting a little, aggravated because maybe they're at the grocery store for too long, and she started crying a bit, and the toddler was hitting the mother on the leg. Now, the mother actually smacked the child's hand and said, "Don't hit." And I looked at that, and I was enraged, but I was also so baffled that a mother can actually look at a child and hit her and say, "Don't hit." But then I come to the quick realization that we live in a world. Now, this is going to be controversial as well, but we live in a world where a lot of people are religious. And, I don't have all the answers, but I tend to live my life by facts, not by magic, not by things that I can't determine 100% are true. Now, sure, there may be a God out there. Who knows? But there are people out there that live their lives by a code that there is a God out there, and it's this exactly how the Bible said it, and this and that and this. And religion leads to a lot of fighting and dividing and conquering around the world. I mean, that's one of the reasons why wars continue to exist. Religion is what fuels them. But then I started to understand, yes, it's making all sense now. That mother, she says, don't hit to her kid, but hits the kid. The same way that the Christian's God says don't kill, but yet drowns everyone but Noah and his select few family members. So things started to make sense now. That people don't even realize the major flaws and things they believe in. Well, so far we've got into government and taxes. We've got into spanking and stuff. But now let's get a little more controversial. If I couldn't get controversial enough as it is, let's get into the religion. All you Christians out there, I have a major concern with you people. Not only because you believe in a God that, like I just stated, kills his people, but you're not allowed to. So it seems kind of like an authoritarian relationship to me. And, I mean, look at some of the stories in the Bible. There's actual quotes that says, "I'm a vengeful God," and "you must do as I say," and stuff like that. And now think of the story, the Noah's Ark story. Now, people will say, well, Sodom and Gomorrah, it was a terrible city. There was a lot of bad things, a lot of sin. Yeah, but you have to admit that there must have been a baby in that city. Okay, it was a city. There's a lot of people there. So now knowing, use your brain, there would have had to have been babies in the womb, newborns, children so young that how is it possible they sinned? But you won't look at those things. And if this God you so believe in, well, he killed those babies. He killed them. That's messed up. A God that says do not kill but then kills is not any kind of God I want to believe in. Now, we got here for some reason. I don't know if could be a gazillion different things. Who knows how we got here? Evolution, who knows? Big Bang could be. A creator could be. We could just be a computer program. We could just be Sims 2013 or 2055. Who knows? We could be running a program on the PlayStation 10 in the future, and they're just playing us, and we're in a virtual world. Because, I mean, if you ever played any of these new video games, they look pretty real, because each system that gets, look at the new Xbox One now. Wow, it looks even better than the Xbox 360. Well, think of in 20 years what the Xbox 10 will look like. Who knows? It'll look so real that it'll be hard to distinguish between reality and life. Reality and virtual reality, I mean. So we can't understand what life is yet. But don't close off your mind, people, so quick and believe into this holy Bible that, like I said, a God that kills his people but tells you not to kill. That seems kind of messed up. And there's so many more stories, but I don't want to rant an hour or two about religion tonight. I don't have the time. The other story, I don't know the names. I'm going to butcher it here, but father, the god tells Satan wants to tempt him. The god,
he says he's gonna one of this human beings on earth, and he says that the guy takes his son to the cliff or whatever, and right before he kills his son, God tells him to stop, and I guess that was a test to prove his faith in God or something like that, and Satan must test him. I forget, I don't really look into this magic Pharisee book that much. I just know a few stories from childhood. But even that story in itself, that God would, I think it was Job and something maybe, I don't know, but that he would put that guy through that he was about to kill his kid over because he believed in God. Well, that's a sick kind of love. And it also baffled me is that churches, great big huge beautiful buildings, they're church. They're supposed to love, they're supposed to be the holy places, right? God's house. Well, wouldn't it make sense that, all the homeless we see on the streets, there should be no such thing as homeless on the streets, not when you have beautiful churches that are only full on Sunday or maybe a few days through the week. These churches were so great and loving towards their God, you would surely think they would open their doors up and poor people or homeless people would have places to sleep all the time. What would be more safe than sleeping at the church? They sure don't want to go sleep at the local shelters and stuff like that. So how about you open up your church doors? I also had a huge problem with religion that when I used to go as a young child and see that they'd pass around the money bowl. And anytime money's got to be involved in paying a god and stuff like that, it always brings up red flags for me. So let's see. We talked about how I think we could get a better society by simply changing our tax system into a voluntary tax system so it would reflect more like the free market does. I've talked about that would eliminate a whole bunch of problems, but then I also told you we got to eliminate the problems of future assholes trying to corrupt systems in the future, so that would come down into parenting, which we've talked about spanking. Talked to you about that and how it's super negative. It creates assholes and psychopaths. Psychopaths are created out of fucked up families, basically. So then we talked about religion. And now I think let's get out of the doom and gloom and let's look at the future. I think I'm going to close it off, the last segment, with some optimism, because I'm an optimist person. I always look at the cup half full. And we are living in a magical time. I would rather be alive today than any probably point in time in history. Now, sure, it would be fun to go back in a time machine and experience what it would have been like to live in the Roman or Egyptian period times, but I would not want to stay there. I would just want to pop in, experience it, and get out. Because today, things we're doing is almost like Star Wars. Okay? If you went even 100 years ago, we were just starting to get into the birth of the car. Okay? So even in just a little over 100 years, we've went from horse and stuff to Mars rover on the planet Mars, and we got spaceships and stuff like that. So all of that in 100 years. That's unbelievable to think of. Unbelievable. Laptops and computers now are doubling themselves in technology and capabilities every 6 months. We can't even keep up with it. New smartphones are coming out all the time, bettering themselves. We are in the technological era. It's exciting and it's scary. Everything we've watched in their Star Wars movies growing up now are starting to become a reality. And that's very hard for some of the older generations that are clinging on to those old periods, like people like my great-grandmother and stuff. Well, they were born in the times where it was still horse and buggy. So they must really, really be shocked to see the change in the world. But I got to kind of be born right in the middle of it. So anyone, 20-some years old and younger and up now, you guys are so lucky. We are born in the technological era like nothing ever before. We were in the birth of it. Birth the internet, smartphones, and everything. It's crazy. And we need to start examining our lives, because with all this technology and all this power comes great responsibilities. 200 years ago, you didn't have the technology to blow the planet up. Nowadays, a couple nukes can do that. So with all this great technology and power comes great responsibility. And it's all come out of the last 100 years. And we're kind of like, for 99% of our human species evolution, we've been alive. We've been hunter-gatherer people, and then in the last 100 years, boom, we're flying in space. We're monkeys in space. It's crazy to think about. And we kind of don't even know what we're doing. We're running nuclear reactors, and it's just blowing up and leaking Fukushima radiation all through our ocean. We don't even know the technology and what the capabilities of some of these things can do. So that's why I feel it's very important in this time in history that we get things straightened out, because now we do have the capabilities of really destroying ourselves and the entire planet, where we didn't have that before. Back in the ancient Egypt times, great big 100,000 armies could go to war with other 100,000 men armies or million men armies. But at the end result, the world still went on, nature still existed. That's not the same now. Bombs could destroy the entire world. So that's why it's very important, and why I see the next world wars, if it may go to that, which I hope it don't, or if we don't get things straightened out, it could be a catastrophe. But remember what I said, I wasn't going to get too doom and gloom, and I don't think it will get to that, because I see generations, I see kids getting so much smarter now. Kids are genuinely smarter now with this technology. They're using it. We have answers to everything right in our hands, Google. And I do see a lot more people tuning into this kind of information, and a lot more people realizing that, hey, we have the power to the entire world. We better figure what we're going to do here before we do something wrong. And Fukushima and other natural disasters and stuff like that have pointed this out. So I encourage everyone to really look at these things and be happy and optimistic that we're born in this era that is so amazing, that we can communicate to each other globally, that we are now getting life extension technologies. People are living 80, 90 years old now, and the life expectancies are only going up as years go on. So we need to. Like I said, it's not all doom and gloom. It's a beautiful time to be born. Lots of positive things happening in the world. Look at all the protests and revolutions happening. Just type in revolution in Google Images, and you'll see all over the world people standing up to corrupt governments. So I'm very positive, and I don't think that it will get to the point of the doom and gloom scenario, but it is a possibility, and we need to keep an open mind to these things. And we need to realize that we need to change our ways and address these problems. Because I see the next, if we went from horse and buggy in 100 years, and technology is doubling every 6 months now, we can only assume that the next 100 years are going to be way more bizarre and advanced and crazy technology stuff than the last 100 years. That's just statistics. So if we in 100 years went to Mars rover, the next 100 years, who knows? It could be Star Wars. We literally could be populating other planets. No joke. This is not far-fetched things to think about. Okay, it's not out of the totally out there. So we need to realize that if we're going to start moving out and populating the stars, that we should first get ourselves in check. Because look at the damage we've done to our own planet. We don't want to go out there and continue on with this violence and destroy other civilizations or planets or something that may be out there. We need to get right with each other, be one, and realize that we are just monkeys on a rock. Not monkeys per se, but just for the comedy of it. And we are all on one planet. there's nowhere else right now to go. And do we want to reach for the stars, unite, and use this technology to populate the stars and potentially live extended periods of time and explore the universe and all the beautiful things that humans can accomplish? Or do we want to continue to infight with each other and potentially another war, and the technological capabilities this war will cost way more lives than any previous? And I don't want to see that happen. And I don't want a violent revolution. I'll say that right now on the record. And this is a call out there to all police and military. You guys are where the rubber meets the road. That if a disaster scenario happened or a world war broke out and martial law was declared, it's the police and the military that are kind of where are against they against the people, or are they with the people? And I hope they're with the people, because it's your families and your lives and everything else. You guys are invested in this planet as well. And don't think now because you guys are granted a few extra rights or a few extra powers to violate people's rights, you got to look and say, well, why am I being given this extra power? It's for a sinister reason. And don't fall for it. Honor your oaths out there. Don't go to wars. Don't sign up to be in the military no more. Now that you've understand that you're not fighting for freedom over there. If you're fighting for freedom, there's freedom to fight for here in your homeland. So let's unite. Unite as one. Come together. Stop this foolishness of religion, divide and conquer, and who's Santa Claus is right, because that's how I look at religion. Because, I mean, up until I was whatever years old, I believed Santa Claus was real, just like a lot of kids did. Well, that's all I think a lot of religion is. It's just a bunch of adults that don't want to realize they got conned, believing in a boogeyman in the sky. Because if there was the God that you guys say there is, he's doing a terrible job down here. Hey, come help us out. Fukushima wasn't enough to bring them down. What needs to happen? And a lot of you religious people out there will argue, well, the world's the way it is because this is how the Bible played it out in Revelations. That's a cop-out. And if you believe God's going to come down and stop any terrible things from happening, you're going to be a fool like the Jews that were, I bet, waiting for their God to come down before they were put in the incineraries. Or the millions of people that died in the World War I's and II's and all back through history. The Egyptians with their God. Did any of these gods throughout history come down and intervene for any one of these civilizations that we know of? No. It's just us. We're just us on this planet. Now, when I say that, I'm not ruling out possibility of extraterrestrial life out there. If you ever just go to Google, type in Hubble Ultra Deep Field, and it's a picture that they recently released showing of a bunch of galaxies in one frame, and you see a frame of a whole bunch of dots of galaxies of light. And knowing that we're only in one galaxy, how could you even fathom mathematically that we're the only people out there? I don't see it. But for now, as far as we know, we're the only ones in this little solar system. No aliens have come down, as far as I know, and helped us or shown us anything yet. So we got to do this. It's us. It's the human species. We're it. We got to do this. We got to stand together. We got to come together. We got to stop fighting with each other. We got to stop spanking our kids. We need to realize that violence is wrong and get back to the basic principles. Don't hit, don't steal. No victim, no crime. If you're not hurting me, no biggie. We need to end the drug war. Stop putting people in jail for putting stuff in their body. Who are you to tell anyone what they can or cannot do with their body anyway, to begin with, what they can put in with it? I don't care if the guy has a pill in his hand and the pill can potentially kill him if he takes it. As soon as he swallows it, it kills him. Now, you can go over there and coach the guy, don't do that or whatever. But you think it's sensible to take that guy and throw him in a cage. Well, that was better for him. At least now, at least if he took the pill and died immediately, who knows, if there was a heaven like you guys believe in, he wouldn't be suffering. And if there was nothing, well, at least he wouldn't be feeling nothing. But instead, you guys threw him in a cage to solve his problems. The drug war is ridiculous. These are people with health issues. The drug addiction and stuff should be a criminal issue.
So end the drug wars. Stop infighting. Stop race baiting. Stop worrying about racism and stuff like that. It's just a skin color. It's like walking up and making fun of a black bear because he's black, and then the grizzly bears are cool, but the black bear's not because he's got black fur. It's ridiculous. We're all human beings. You cut us open, we're all the same. Blood's still red. I don't care if you're gay, straight, or whatever. I don't care what you're doing at night in your bedroom. What I do care about is the violence that's going on, the wars that are continuing, the spying and the drones and the innocent people, and especially the innocent children caught up in all this that are dying from it. So I would encourage anyone out there to just look into some things. Get more active. Do more. Do more nice things in the world. Speak out against all these issues. If you have any friends out there that are having newborn children, show them a few articles on spank and how negative effects it plays. Let's bring in a peaceful generation that can do this right. I'm your host for Anarchist Revolution, Matt Hunter, signing off. Hope you enjoyed my first podcast. Thanks very much. Subscribe. Find me on Facebook. You know what to do. Signing out.